3, 2, 1. Max Kleur, legend. Thanks for making time.
Sure, man.
And thanks to the Chivita guys, making
Yeah.
space in there. Actually, we reorganized the couch, reorganized the space to be able to have this chat. I believe you're doing some work with them anyway.
Down at Transproviance this weekend, the 20th year. What a celebration, what an iconic event in endurance racing, mountain bike and in South Africa. So looking forward to getting down there this weekend to see Zane and the crew, but also to Charlotte and Gemma. Thanks for this awesome spot chat, Broadacres.
Gemma, nice work.
And this store,
Guess
Broadacres,
what I got?
is
Guess what I got?
awesome.
I won a competition at Chivita for showing how much power I've got. I know. I also had that rolling eye moment, and I thought it was a joke because they said, you won the competition. Luckily, it was a lucky draw, not actual power output. So I'm going to be kidding myself out. I'm going to
Nice
look
one,
the part,
Stephen.
eh?
Nice
I'm
one,
going to
Stephen.
look the part.
Nice one.
Yeah, but Max, thanks for making the time. Really good. Get to work with you a lot. Known you for a long time. And an interesting story of the development from athlete into management, athlete management, events management, and now in this role of quite the niche events MC, continuity commentary, a live commentary, on-site stuff. It's a special little role, and it's one that you seem to do naturally. People say I do it naturally. I don't think it's so natural for me, but it's an odd one. It's a niche one. I mean, there's not a lot of people doing it, but it is a good fun one, and it's one that enables us a certain amount of privileges. You can show off your shirt quickly. Show off that shirt. So that says, it's reverse Paris 2024. He was the man on the mic out there, but we're going to get into that just now. So Max, a quick rundown. History for you, for the people watching. Started off as adventure racing athlete. I mean, you're an extraordinary athlete. You were a phenomenal animal who just could not switch off. That's what I saw you as. You were that animal, you were willing to drive it, you were willing to go for it, you get up at 2 a.m. to go and do your 12-hour long training session. Give the guys a little rundown. What was it like being there? And then how did you get from there into these different roles? What was that storyline like?
So I've always been a sports fan. I've always loved sport. Sport's been a part of my DNA since growing up. My brother was a very good sportsman, so he was sort of my hero growing up. And we did everything from swimming to water polo to tennis to hockey to golf, touch rugby, whatever it was at school. And then finished up at school. Really found my niche in water polo. Played a lot of water polo. Went overseas and played a bit, and then got into adventure racing through doing the Camel Trophy trials. I think 1997, 96 maybe. And then really,
that's almost
showing some age
30 years ago.
But
Okay.
just found a love for just like testing yourself and putting yourself in the hurt box and seeing what you're capable of. And to do that with some really close mates, especially with adventure racing where you've got to stick together as a team, finish as a team. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the environment. You learn a lot about what's important to you and how simple life actually is when you break it down and you peel the rings of the onion away. Life is simple.
Basics.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Take another step. Keep
That's
stepping.
it. And just keep going and be your best. Be the best version of yourself. For me, people are always competing against other people, brands competing against other brands. For me, my competition is me. And I want to be the best version of myself. If I can be the best version of myself every day and be better the next day and the next, and I do that over a week, a month, a year, a decade, then I feel like I'm ticking boxes. And that for me is my drive, and that's where my goals and my passion lie.
Okay, so within that experience, getting into that adventure racing world, finding that opportunity to express that passion and drive to be a better person, you ended up pushing a little bit further because it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. You went into the management of athletes, team management, that type of thing, and then into events management. And it was from that really that you ended up stepping into this international void of a voice on site. Because you were doing it already. You were doing it for your own events. Give us that little storyline.
So, I picked up a mic in 2008 for the first time at one of my events and just realized that there was a gap. It's all very good and well putting on an event and working with cool brands and doing cool things, but your client is the person on the day that's taking part in the event.
Yeah.
And their experience has to be a memorable one. How do you tick those boxes to get them back to the next one? How do you connect with them and their families and their friends,
Yes.
and create that moment? And I think that's where we are. Often you'll see me, I'm always in black. For me, I'm a voice. It's not about me. It's not about the personality. You'll never see me jumping up on a stage and putting my hands around athletes, or hugging them in a public environment. For me, it's about storytelling. I tell the story. I connect with the athletes on a very intimate level because I have access to them,
Yes.
in some of their biggest moments.
Yes.
But that's always behind the scenes.
Yes.
And that's about content. And the more an athlete can trust you, and the more an athlete respects what you do, the better content you get from them, and the more relaxed they are around you. And that shows in your work.
And the more they'll trust to hand that content to you. Absolutely. Because you're going to show them off.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what you do.
Well, it
show
is.
off those
And it's
people.
also just, a lot of the time we're speaking to athletes as they've had probably one of the biggest moments of their career, of their life, whether it's performing at a school race, or whether it's at a regional level, a national level, an international level. We are interviewing and talking to or speaking to those athletes on the start grid. And it's important to create that moment for them, so that when they look back, and their parents and their families look back, or when they want to showcase that to their children one day, that moment is special, and that moment is created by voice and sound.
Absolutely. So Max, you ended up going into this role of being an MC. Now, I've got a list of questions I've prepped. I went to AI and I said, what 15 questions can I ask? And of that, about 4 were good. The rest were completely random. So I'm going to ask some of these questions. I thought they were quite cool, and I'm going to put a spin on it, knowing your personality, knowing a bit about your background. I must admit though, you're a bit of a man of mystery, because you're darting off to all these different places around the world. So I see you for a little spurt, I work with you for a little bit, and then you're gone again, and then you're at the Olympics. And because you're the voice on the ground, I don't necessarily relate to what you're going through over there. So I know you're doing it. I get to give you a little virtual fist pump, and but we don't see you. We don't see you, and that energy that's coming out is quite cool. The personality, the philosophy, the drivers that make that. So I'm going to try and go through these questions. You ready?
Let's go. Let's get it.
What drew you to the role of MC at cycling events, specifically cycling events, because that's where it seems to have come to a niche. Although you've done quite a few of the Red Bull events, which they have something to do with wheels most of the time. And how did you first find yourself getting involved in that on a commercial scale? Because doing it for your own events, fine, you're covering a base, but someone else willing to pay you for that role.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and it's a journey, and I think it's a journey of confidence and not of arrogance. I think that's one thing that people have got to understand. We walk a very fine line where we have to deliver on time in a very specific period, and we have to make sure that we are.
I'm hot. You're not confident. I mean, you're confident. But yeah.
And we've got to tick those boxes. We're ticking those boxes for our client, who's invariably the owner of the event, whether it's an organisation like a Red Bull, or the IOC at the Olympics, or the UCI in cycling space. For me, I'm a specialist in off-road cycling. I do a lot of trail running as well. I do a lot of extreme sports stuff as well, and then I do what's called the continuity stuff, where I'm asking what you're doing right now, just anchoring that show, putting it together. I think what's important to understand is the difference between broadcast live, which is what you guys at home hear and experience on the TV, and live show, which is what I do. So I run the show with the team from the broadcast, outside broadcast, the producers, the directors. They're in my ears. They're telling us what to do, when to do it, and then we are taking the live feed on what's happening in front of us in the arena. And we are then breaking that down, digesting it, spitting it out immediately, and then pretty much immediately after that, it's taken by the broadcast hosts. So for us, it's live. We don't get chances to make mistakes. We've got to be well read, and I think this is another thing, as you said earlier, that people don't see, is the amount of homework that we do. We spend a lot of time researching. We've got to know not only the athletes, we've not only got to know the event, the history of the event, but we've also got to know the DNA of the sportif element of the racing. So when you're working at a world championship or Olympic level, you've got to understand the rules of every single sporting code. You've got to understand what an injury looks like, how long an injury takes to fix. You're on the ear to medical, you're on the ear to entertainment, you're on the ear to broadcast. All of that stuff is coming through your ears, and then you're having to talk at the same time. So that is live, and that is in the arena. You're pumping the crowd, you're getting the vibe going. Invariably there's another MC with you of either that nation's language. So obviously now coming back from France, I had a French MC next to me. When I'm working here locally in South Africa, I'll use Steve, who speaks in English as well, depending on where you work. And then also you have MCs in the crowd, and those MCs are there part of what's called sports presentation, because we present the sport to the arena, and then that gets taken around the world. So when you hear the vibe and the shouting and the energy of the crowd at those events, we create that, and that then resonates through into the broadcast, where the broadcast commentators take it and move with it. So quite a lot involved.
So talking about all that involvement, what's the most challenging aspect for those event organizers and your role in being the visual voice host of that event? Because ultimately that's what you are. You represent the host, the organizer, and you're the pressure point. You're the communication point that goes out. So what's the most challenging role you see for these organizers in managing these events? Big question.
So yeah, I think what is important is you've got to have a holistic understanding of eventing, how it works, from ground up, from building the site to getting all the specialists on site, those specialists coming across various different aspects of the event, whether it be your race coordinator, your race referees, your TV, your broadcast, your social media teams, your sound teams, your lighting teams. All of that's important. So I'm integrally involved in that. I sit in those meetings where we are all talking to each other. We are all knowing that over the next 2 or 3 days in setup, we've got to talk to that person, sound check with that person, make sure the lighting is right. Where's the sun going to be for the prize giving and protocol ceremonies? What are the possible anthems that need to be played? So there's a lot of planning. When we get to the event and the show time, the shows vary between an hour and maybe 3 hours. That goes by in 10 seconds. We don't even feel that, because the prep is so important. And we know what to do. We get lists of what do we do in case of, if someone gets a puncture in the gate, or what happens if there's a medical emergency, or all of those things we need to manage, and we need to be able to communicate clearly and within our lane, because you never jump outside your lane with what needs to be done. So those emergency protocols and that are very important. But I think the biggest thing for me is the understanding of the sport, having the right people on the ground, your wingmen in that commentary booth, whether it's the DJ, your producer, your other commentator, your floor managers, your MCs in the group, throwing back and forth. That team has to be solid. And we're lucky with the sports I do. I literally have a BMX team, a mountain bike team, a Red Bull team that I work with, an IOC team that I work with, a UCI team that I work with. And wherever I travel around the world, I meet up with those people. So there's that level of confidence.
Yeah.
Also, everyone knows their job, and everyone does their job
Yes.
to 98% of their job. So they're 100% accountable and responsible. That takes a lot of pressure off you as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the time working back home, I'm working on an event where I'm doing stuff outside of commentary. Organizing, creating social media, etc., etc. And that's what we do, and that's how we hustle. But coming to the big events, you've got to be 100% focused on your job, because you're such a critical cog in the wheel of the deliverable, and that's what you're judged on. So, and I think over time you sort of, create those connections with people, those friendships with people, and that circle of trust. That becomes
Very
important. Very important. When I go to the big events as well, just the research. There's so much research to do that you actually have to have someone helping you, because there's just so much there's so many algorithms on the day that can play out. And you've got to know all of them.
You've got to be double checking them as well, because you can't trust that anyone's going to have any of that 100% correct.
Yeah.
You're that last quality control before the communication goes out. So it's a big one there. Okay, next one. Energy. Seems to be natural to you. How do you keep that energy so high at these events? Now, there's some events you've done that go on for hours and hours on end. Like you say, these big international ones, they are orchestrated and managed and directed, and you've got your key little areas. Give me the rundown, what it takes to keep that energy up.
So for me, I don't have the opportunity to switch off. I work 46 weekends a year, and when you've got a mic in your hand, or when you're seen in a role as a host, people are going to come to you and ask questions, and you've got to have those answers. So for me, I have two switches. I have an on switch and I have an off switch. So when I'm not working, I'm spending 100% time with my family. I'm totally downtime, relaxing, absorbing, prepping for the next event. I've got to have this goldfish memory, I've got like a 48 to 72 hour memory, because this week I'm going to Transbavance, down towards Jeffreys Bay there, and that's just an incredible event, and it's a 20-year history, and I've got to know about that. But last weekend I was at the biggest show on earth, the Olympic Games in Paris. So I've got to tap out now of Olympics, focus on Transbavance, and then next week I close that down, and then I move across to the Otter Trail Run where I go and do that recce, where I've got to now absorb and pick up all that stuff. So it's literally a window. And you've got to be like a goldfish. You've got to absorb that. You've got to focus on it. You've got to have this ninja time focus, and then you've got to spit it out. And as freelancers and specialists at what we do, we are to a certain extent event specialists.
Yeah.
We understand everything about the event. We've got to understand the partnerships, the sponsorships, the level of those sponsorships. We've got to understand the health and safety, how that works, who to call in this emergency, what that looks like, how do we manage that.
Yeah.
And it's just so important to be switched on all the time. And to sometimes you have to be direct. You have to be direct. You can't, sometimes when people are coming to say hello and friends and family and whatever, you've got to say, listen, hi, I've got to move because I've got to get this done. And that's the focus.
That's part of the professionalism.
That's the focus, 100%.
That's the professionalism, delivering it. So keeping that energy up, is it like, to be brutally honest, is it the amount of coffee you put in there? Is it my first, I'll give you my anecdote. My anecdote to break this down. First job I ever did was Richard Beswick, and he called me in and said, I need some help. I've got to do some commentary at the back line of the 947 event. Now, this will be my 20th year. So 20 years ago, I arrive at the event. I just finished with all my cycling, and he's got a sound system set up there, and he says, here's a mic. And I go, great, what do I do with it? And he says, just talk with me. We're going to talk about all the riders that are coming in, and here's a list of sponsors, and we're going to bounce between. He says, and here's a Coke for you. So I grab this Coke. That's 5 o'clock in the morning. Put it in my pocket. I don't need to drink anything. I've had 3 coffees. I feel just fine. We start talking about an hour in. I think, sure, better get some fluids in. So I open the bottle, and I take a big glug, and I swallow, and I go, that's not Coke. That's a brandy and Coke. That's a brand. I don't drink. So when I'm having a glug of brandy and Coke, that changed my perspective a little bit, and suddenly I relax a bit more into it. And I started to realize, because you're nervous first time around, first time around on the mic, and this happens to people you interview as well. You give them the mic and ask for a question, what do they do? They go away from you. You've got to coach them into the role. But keeping the energy up helps them keep the energy up as well. So I bring that anecdote in. It's happened to me once. It's the one, I love that story. But for me, it's
coffee.
I have to
morning
like
coffee.
5 probably, and then my personality's kicked back in, and I feel like I'm ready to go. And then at about 3 PM, the headache starts rising, and I've got to be careful to manage that as well. And just the same as any athlete out there, you've got to be careful of how much you're giving and how much you're allowing to recharge. You have an energy level that's above my energy level. I assume naturally bring that energy through.
So it's difficult because you've got to remember that, like an athlete, we have to perform every single weekend. As I said, 45, 46 weekends a year. If I'm sick and I don't work, I don't get paid.
100%.
So for me, I've got to manage that expectation. A lot of the time you'll go to a big event or a Red Bull event, there'll be an after party, and everyone's like, but that's the only event they're doing that year. I've got another one next week, Thursday. So for me,
look for the door.
It's I have a good breakfast in the morning when I can before and normally that's protein, just to keep me going through that, because invariably you're so busy at the key moments, you don't get a breakfast. You probably miss out on lunch. I always take a couple of energy bars with me in my bag. Those always help. I drink a lot of water during the day because I can't afford to get dehydrated, especially if it's a 2 or 3 day event. So managing your energy levels. And then what I also do is I ensure that my team that I work with and myself take time out. You cannot keep that energy level. If it's an 8-hour gig, you need to get in there for the first, take a little bit of time off, get back in, you have those moments. And events luckily have crests and troughs. And if you identify those crests and troughs, I manage that. And not only for me, but also with teams. So you've got to do that. Remember the teams that I work with are sound teams, they're DJs, they're live entertainment, they're MCs, they're hosts, they, whatever those are. We've got to manage that expectation, and we've got to make sure that we're ready for those moments. So energy for me is just an understanding of the event, understanding how it works, and understanding what is important and when, at what time it's important, and then rising to those occasions. Remember, when you're live on TV and you're live in a venue, you don't get a chance to think. It's got to be premeditated, pre-thought, pre-worked out. So you've got your algorithms, you've got your scenarios of what's going to happen, and then when you get that moment with that athlete, as you say, sometimes that athlete is not ready. Your secret is to calm the athlete down, give them confidence, tell the athlete this is live, or this is pre-recorded, or it's going to be put into the post-edit. That then gives you options on how you would interview and manage. So for me, the athlete training is important. I specialize in that. I work with a lot of athletes around the world in that space, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, how to get out of a live interview by touching your nose or coughing or whatever that is. So there's tricks of the trade, just like, you've got your racecraft as an athlete, you have a craft of your trade when you're working. And it's just about managing all of that at the right time and at the right pace.
So you've got quite the role. You're all over the world. You're at various events. You say you like that 72-hour window of focus on one and then you're into the other. The transitions in between, you're doing a little bit of travel now. It's almost the same amount of work as having to go to Paris or America or something like that. You got a little bit of time with your family, and now you're off to the coast, and you're off to pretty much a 24-hour mountain bike race. What is that travel logistics drain like on your system? Do you get energized by it? Do you find it super enthusiastic and exciting, or has it become a bit of a routine?
Yeah. So I average between 30 and 40 countries a year with my travel, and I've got various airlines that I use. I think once you unlock the cheat code for travel, there is a cheat code, especially when you're able to find business class or you're able to manage expectation around the lounges. Once you get that, I know it sounds, that it's a nice space to be in, but at the end of the day, it's lounges, it's hotels, and it's airplanes. It's the ability to be able to sleep, to arrive at a venue, to be able to go straight into a work phase. That's all very good and well when you're moving between here and Europe, but as soon as you're going USA, or as soon as you're going Australia or Asia or Canada, then you've got jet lag, and jet lag also becomes a problem. So it's mastering that as well, and understanding with your client, okay, if you need me to here on this day, I know jet lag is going to look like this, I need 24 hours to recover from that. So it's about managing it, and it's about just understanding what works. For me, if I'm going to a new event, I like to get in a day early, because I might not understand or know the venue. I might be working with a new team. If I'm working with people that I've worked with before, I can literally come in on the morning of the race and go for it. So, but a lot of that comes from research. A lot of that comes from working with the event organizer. A lot of that is knowing your travel agents, working with your travel teams. I have specific travel teams that contact me. They're my client. They have a travel team. They say, when do you want to arrive? When do you want to leave? Okay, this is what's happening. Here's what your logistics look like. Here's your transfer to airport. Here's your accommodation. This is how you go from here, hotel to venue. This is how you get back. These are restaurants you can go to in the evening. So they simplify it for us. And that makes life a lot easier. And a lot of the time, we're with good people that we know. Our hosts invariably take us out for dinner. So yes, it is an exciting environment to be in.
Yes.
But if it wasn't scheduled and it wasn't as organized, it can get very tiring and it can be a mess.
So on that basis, give us your anecdotal experience, best travel experience, worst travel experience, without putting yourself under pressure. Best one, coolest event you've done as far as travel goes.
As far as travel goes. So I went to China in 2018-19. I spent 6 weeks in China.
Yep.
And we worked on cyclocross, BMX and mountain bike. 2 weeks each event, and they basically pulled in the top 30 athletes in the world, of which they chose 20 who could make it based on their routine, and with that they then plugged in international media. Everyone flew into Beijing, and from there it was into luxury buses, 16 people in a bus. We had I think 13 or 14 buses. I was the host of that, and we would basically travel to a hotel, sleep, have an event, go to Great Wall of China, from there move across to, it was just an incredible experience to experience the Chinese culture, going on the Silk Road into Inner Mongolia. So for me, that was probably one of my best. I think also what you've got to understand is, the Olympics is a very strict environment. What we've just come from in Paris is very difficult and different to what I experienced in Tokyo. Tokyo was 36 days living in a room, food brought to your door. You have a handler off-site, handler on-site, and a driver for 36 days in the same car. Good morning, Max, how are you? Here's your coffee. Every single day, like Groundhog Day for 36 days, So experiences come, in my opinion, with people.
Yeah.
It's the people that make the experience. As much as the countries are beautiful and you stay at this hotel or that hotel, I've stayed in some of the worst hotels in the world but had the best experience. I've stayed in some of the best hotels in the world and had the worst experience. So it's people. And for me, the long haul travel, flying into the likes of Canada, USA.
Yeah.
Those are long trips. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to rest when you need to rest.
Yeah.
And then obviously sometimes you also get the long drive from the airport to the venue. The transfers can be very long and very difficult as well. So I would say, best overall experience was that 6 weeks in China, just because of the people I worked with, the athletes I got to interact with, the media and that I chatted to from around the world. I think the ones that you don't forget are the relationships. Having worked on FIFA 2010, which for us in South Africa was just this massive experience, and it was so successful in so many ways, but the spirit and the Ubuntu and the South African pride coming out of that, the people I worked with there then go to Commonwealth Games. You find those people, they move across 4 years later to the next FIFA World Cup, but you're actually going to see them at the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
So you get these people that travel
follow the circus.
To follow the circus.
Yeah.
And they are really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And when you get to that site, if that person's on site, you're good to go. So I think it's important to also not take it for granted. I think, you think, oh, well, I'll be back here next year, but maybe you don't. You never know what's going to happen. So for me, I think what's important is to live in the moment, to experience the moment as best I can. If I'm going to a new country or a new place, I try and stay an extra day just to experience the basics of it. Difficult sometimes when I can't take Brahman and the kids with me, but I try and share that with them as best as possible.
Yeah.
But again, also, when I'm home, I'm 100% in. People say, oh, Max, you're overseas so much. I can tell you that I spend probably more time with my kids than most parents, because when I'm home, I'm doing nothing else, and I'm 100% in.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's me and my son, and that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else can take a back seat.
Absolutely.
Because I give of myself at all those events to everyone else at that moment. They go, oh, your life must be amazing socially.
7 o'clock bedtime school tomorrow.
That's it. But that's my joy as well. Going to pick up my son, dropping my son off, going running with them, going to watch his sport events. That's the gift we get in the work
100%.
we've got. But we lose the weekends, we lose the travel.
But working for yourself as well, it's having the freedom of a freelancer is something incredible, and I think it's something we don't take for granted. And also, we have the opportunity to say no, and I think that is such a strong characteristic to have, the ability to say no, or no, thank you.
Thank you.
Or
Because
thank
you've got
you.
manners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, I think we're very. I think it's a good place to be. The ability to work with people, to understand people, and also hey guys, I can't do this. I'm overseas, but I've got a guy. His name's Steve. He's not going to let you down. I've worked with him a gazillion times.
Or Gerald.
Or Danny,
whoever,
or whoever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether it's
But there's not actually a lot.
There's not a
you know
lot.
What? There's a lot. There's a few you can count on, and they do a good job. And you know that if they take it over, it's going to be delivered well.
Yeah. But there's no youngsters. And this is a big thing that I don't understand, and I'll put it out there on this chat. I think we need strong female voices, specifically in sport and sport live events, and we need strong youngsters. We need to be able to get into that internship phase where these youngsters can come to the events, work with us. The thing is that comes with a whole lot of issues. Entitlement is a big issue with youngsters today. We know this. But you find those one or two little gems, those little golden nuggets. And incredibly overseas in Europe, internship is a massive part of what I do. Every event I go to in Europe, they bring in a youngster to work alongside me, work with me, understand what that's like, so that they can then take that to a national or a regional or a local level. And I think that's something we don't get here in South Africa. That's something I'd like to see.
There's no formal structure around it, but it does come with a philosophy. If you've got that philosophy, you've got that nature about you. I do that with the school's events. I try very hard to get the kids to engage around their events. So give us a rundown what's happening. If any of them are there that are able to talk a little bit on the technical side, bring them in, give them some pointers on it. We did that with the Enduro the other day, getting a jump competition and getting two of the riders to do the commentary on the jump competition. And that first moment where they go, whoa, I can hear my own voice. And they don't know how to handle it. Then they start slowing their speech down because they're trying to correct what they're hearing.
With the delay,
and to teach them how to just switch those ears off, listen to your voice inside your head and deliver your sentence. Deliver the sentence. That's it. But it's a lot. And actually, we say this from a perspective of how do I put this? We know it's not easy, but it is easy.
It is
easy if you simplify it down and you don't complicate it, and you definitely don't think everyone's going to criticize you.
And it's okay. For us, remember, we're delivering to 80% of the people. If we're delivering and talking too much and there's no energy and there's no music, then you become white noise. The last thing you want to do is be at an event where you've got to deliver importance and important pieces and important content, and people aren't listening because they're tired of listening.
But this is a nuance of the skill you've got. That nuance is knowing when to talk and when not to talk, when to allow music to happen, when to allow people to not pay attention. Those are nuances, and they're quite special, and this is what people don't necessarily understand. First time experience with the event organizer, when they say, get back on the mic, and you go, no, it's the wrong time. You do not want that. If you get back on the mic now, we lose what we can do in 20 minutes time, and that's a special skill.
Yeah. But also, I think what's important is understanding the event and having that mutual respect with the event organizer, or what we call internationally your handler. You've got a handler that basically manages and looks after. I need a handler. and it's important for them to understand, look, you don't go and do X amount of Olympic Games or X amount of whatever it is because you don't know what you're doing. You're at a level where people respect that. But at the same time, you've got to respect the fact that you've got a job to do. You need to take that seriously. You cannot take it for granted, and you have to deliver.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard because, what is that respect? How do you gain that respect? Well, that you just gain over time.
So absolutely experience, and you've got to take the chance.
Yeah.
You jump in the deep end, you start swimming. So talking about that experience and your travel experiences, some of the nuances of the environments, the most difficult environments to work in, the easiest environments. When I say difficult, the most challenging to you.
Yeah. So it's important, when you're working with first-time event organizers. They're so passionate about what they do, but passion doesn't necessarily drive a strong and a safe event. What is so important is to make sure that the events are safe, to make sure that the quality of the equipment that you're using, because remember, when you have a microphone, people expect you to know the answer.
Yeah.
And if that sound check is not done, if that music check is not done, if you haven't got the lighting check done, or whatever that is, it's on you.
Yeah.
Because you're the one holding the mic at that time.
Awesome, those socks. They're brilliant.
So,
buy lots of them.
5 please.
Yeah, buy lots of socks.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Warm. Got it.
I've got to climb there. Look at that.
Say hi to there he is.
There he is.
Going to buy himself some socks here at Vita. Nice watch on it. Nice, I like it.
Oh, we're going to put the phone back again. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's important. And again, it's so important to understand your value to the event, because some event organizers don't understand what we do. And again, it's confidence versus arrogance, but it's important to understand that if you are not shining, if your energy levels are not up, if you're having a bad day, the event suffers and that's why you don't have that option. And when you're turning on those energy levels 40, 45 times a year for periods of time, you go to an 8-day stage race. You've got to bring that every day. You look at the likes of the Absa Cape Epic, you look at the likes of the FNB Wines to Wales, what those commentating teams and DJs are doing day after day after day after day. Every day they have a new audience, depending on what event it is, what race it is. And that's the other thing about events.
Energy has to start again.
When you're at the Olympic Games, for example, and you're working in a community environment, you are having new people through that environment every 20 minutes. So yes, you might sound like you're repeating yourself, but that person that's listening is only getting that experience for the first time there. I always put it to kids coming across the line at a race and getting their first medal. That for them is why they're there. That for them is to show their family, their friends, their school kids, to go to show and tell. Some people who've done 1,000 of it, they don't want the medal, but you have to have it. And that's you've got to be present, you've got to be on it, you don't have a chance to switch off, and you have to deliver. And I think that's where the value and the trust circle comes in, from the people that are paying our salaries.
Yep.
The people that bring us in. There's other people that do what we do, but at the end of the day, they might not have that experience to know what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And we sort of are that person that comes and glues that all together. You're almost like the brain trust of the event. And because of that, you're also very valuable when it comes to the debrief. What went wrong, what went right. You're on the radios, you're listening, you're hearing, you're understanding. So you're quite pivotal in fast tracking the result and the next year.
You're quite often the first point of contact for someone who's got a complaint.
Always.
At the end of my events, always, when they ask me how did it go, I say, you know what? Very few people came to complain to me about anything, which means you guys did a great job. In fact, I'm waiting at times for people to come and complain because I can see maybe that duck in the water, the feet are going like mad, on top it looks calm. Has anyone seen all the
what's
feet
going on?
badly
And you know what?
below
95%
surface?
of the time they don't.
They don't.
And that's okay.
But at the same time, there will always, no matter what, at a live event, something will go wrong somewhere. So, how do you handle that?
So problem solving is what we do. You know, we are seeing things before they happen. We're able to engage with, talk to, nudge, whether it's our handler, whether it's our floor manager, whatever that is. We're able to solve those things before they happen. And a lot of the time, those can be critical solves. And a lot of the time, well, that's our job.
How do you do that?
And the solve comes from early identification, knowing who to speak to, and knowing where the solve comes from, and then following that up post-event, because an unhappy person at an event is the first person that's going to go onto social media. So it's about, okay, that guy broke his ankle, or that guy had X, Y, and Z. Make sure that's in your job file, your Joint Operations Center file, with your health and safety team. Come the Monday, make those phone calls. Phone them, hey, how are you? We heard you hurt your ankle. How's that going? Is there anything we can do better? And just let them know that you know about it and that you care. And you do. You know, the fact is that nobody wants to have an incident at their event. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with big numbers and mass participation events and then fans, imagine what happens.
There's always a level of danger in what's going on. That's part of the fun, is the risk you're taking.
Absolutely. Imagine a stadium of 90,000 people, or a Tour de France where you've got millions of spectators.
Something's going to happen.
You know, people at the end of the day have to be responsible for themselves. But as an event, if you can help, you do. And you're happy to.
So, in these unforeseen incidents that happened, what's your general demeanor in handling them? So forget about the technical side of it. What goes through you? What settles in that you've seen as a problem? Who does Max become at that moment?
So you can always see when someone's coming to you to moan about something or let you know about something. I think the big thing is
try hard not to roll your eyes.
That's why you always see me with dark glasses, reflective lenses.
Roll your eyes at them.
But I think the big thing is it comes down to the level of event. You know, what is your purpose at that event? If it is a local or a regional race or whatever it is, and you're able to solve it. But do not let that distract you from your purpose and your job. You know, what most events have is they have a race control center where the race organizers have an information kiosk. The best thing to do always is to divert them to that person, because that then gets recorded, a time, a date stamp, what happened, who was responsible, and then there's a solve after the event. When you're working at Olympic level or a World Cup or World Championship level, your job is not to solve. Your job is to stay in your lane, and invariably you are protected from that by barriers, by speed fencing, by branding, or whatever that is. As soon as you get into that public domain, you've got to realize that you are then a target and people can come to you, and your job then is, again, to hand that off as quickly as possible to someone else and to make sure it's sorted out.
But also part of that is helping those event organizers understand that central control point is so vitally important. They can't have some random person running around. It's not going to help, because you sit restricted to that commentary position, and you've got to be able to hand it off to someone who's going to take care of it. And suddenly there isn't someone there, it's going to be an issue. So
and if it's serious, I mean, you know, there's liability involved. You have to be liable for your actions. So if you have documented that experience of that person, put down a time, a date stamp, and solve what the problem was, well, then you're covered, right? So because when you go into that debrief, you know, 2 years down the line, or you know what media is like, they can come in and whatever happens, you've got the report. You know that you've done the right thing and you followed protocol, and that's important.
So, second last question to let you off the hook shortly. Most rewarding aspect of being an MC at cycling events? Now, I say cycling events. You got
just
all
events.
sorts of events.
No, I mean, I think there's a gratification in executing well. You know, for me, coming out of the Olympics and knowing that I nailed it, knowing that I nailed the ceremonies. You know, it's such a pivotal point. It's such a high pressure point. You know, gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, getting the flags right, making sure the anthem's on time. When you nail that and you're with that team in that commentary box where you've got your different specialists and you all high-five each other and you just know that you've nailed it. For me, I'm lucky that I haven't made many mistakes in my life. I have made some. I mean, everybody does, mainly with pronunciation of names, especially with some of the European countries, where you'll get the mother afterwards or someone coming and letting you know, hey, listen, it's pronounced like this. But you don't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the gratification and the job satisfaction comes from absolutely nailing it, from knowing that you've given your best. And we go back to what I said earlier. If I can be the best version of myself every day, and I can somehow encourage the people around me to do the same, I think you're in a good space.
So last question. If you weren't Max Kleur, the voice of cycling, what would you be doing now?
So I would 100% be working for myself. I love reading. I'm big on facts. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to just getting that research done.
Star Trek fan.
I'm a big gadget fan. I love gadgets. I also love the marketing aspect and how things evolve with brands. And so I'm really into that. But for me, my greatest joy comes from my family. Comes from my kids, Matthew and Rachel. Comes from my wife, Bronwyn. Comes from being able to give them experiences. Because we do. We're able to. When we're at home, and sometimes when I'm overseas and they come with, we're able to show them some of the greatest events on earth. Take them to some of the most amazing places. Events normally take place in incredible places.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I would definitely be entrepreneurial. I love the hustle. I would never live anywhere else but in South Africa. Just because of South Africa, the Ubuntu, the people, the demographic, the craziness, the way we work together, the way we solve, the way there's always a solution, no matter what comes at us. I've had options to go and live and work overseas, and there's no place like South Africa. So for me, I would say, I think it's, no matter what I did, I would be hustling. No matter what I did, I would definitely be in this space of sport and making memories and creating opportunities and telling stories, because telling stories is what I love to do.
That's exactly what we do. Create the thread of interest in the event, isn't it?
Yeah. 100% right.
So last little bit of advice for everyone as we end this off. Advice to anyone keen on getting into this type of role play, because there is no handbook on this.
No.
There's no handbook.
Yeah, look, you can't.
What's your advice to the youngsters, the people who think they can do it, they're keen to give it a try? What's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, this is something you could go and study through media, telecommunications at a varsity. But for me, I never studied this. I'm a qualified
I was
land
about to
surveyor.
say, of the people I know who are the rock stars, so that I qualify 2 South African rock stars in the international on-site commentary world. Yourself and Paul K. Okay.
Paulie, PK.
Yeah, he's amazing. You guys do an incredible job because you read the crowd well, you infuse them with energy, you promote the athletes, you seem to just understand all those nuances and all the grey areas that no one's written the exact details on. And the people who have been necessarily to that education process don't necessarily understand all the background ethereal stuff that's going on. You've picked that up.
Yeah, I think for me what's important is the ability to cross different boundaries and barriers across different sporting codes. I'm able to work at lifestyle festivals, I'm able to work at concerts, I'm able to work I can do launches, I can do whatever it is that involves hosting, engaging an audience and telling stories. So I think the ability for me to work across different sporting codes, we go from anything in cycling to extreme sport, across to going doing trail running, across to going and doing at the beginning of this year I did an event in Dubai which involved people flying around the air with these massive packs. So I think for me it's, if this is something you want to do, you need to be patient, you need to read up, you need to understand what your voice is capable of, you need to have a good understanding of music and be able to work with your DJs and create a vibe and read a room, and you also need to understand the sport or the discipline that you want to be working in. Some people want to go, you find a lot of people in the space come from radio or come from TV, but doing live, which is what Steve and I do, to doing broadcast is a very different thing. Very few people can cross between those two. Gerald the Cock does it very, very well. He's another legend of our sport here in South Africa at the Olympic Games. I think he did his 8th Olympics this year. I mean, it's insane. And his general knowledge, Gerald the legend, his general knowledge is just incredible. So, and I think the other thing is reach out to people who know. Don't be scared to ask, and be humble in your understanding of what needs to be done. Entitlement today is a big issue. Things are available immediately on demand when you're on your iPad, your phone, or whatever, but nothing can replace experience and life experience. So, if it's something you want to do, we're at the events. We've always got some time available. If it's something you want to do, let us know. Reach out to us. Maybe we can plug you in. Maybe we can put you at a water table initially. Maybe we can put you at a vibe zone initially. Let's help you and let's find new talent, because I think that's important, Steve. We're not getting any younger.
What?
And although we pretend we are and we wear cool clothing and try to act hip, we both wear glasses and we can't see very well.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a big blur over there right
come
now.
and say hi and reach out to us and get involved with your local school. One thing I can
That's
definitely
important.
suggest is if
Your
your
local
school
events.
has an AV department, so if your school has a staging and sound and lighting department for your school shows
That's
and your
experience.
assemblies in the morning, learn,
Awesome
go and
advice.
ask if you can get
Yeah.
involved there with audio and technical. Start learning that side of it while you're young. If you play a musical instrument, if you can play the DJ decks, get those experiences behind you and then just build from there. It doesn't happen quickly. I've been in this game for 25 years and it's something which you learn quickly, but at the same time you've got to be slow to go far.
Absolutely. Consistency wins. Consistency wins. For Max Clow, you've been a legend again. I love working with you. Love your insights and experiences, and love cheering you on, even though I didn't get to see you. And guys, just give it a go. If you're willing, give it a go. Max is out there. He's leg friendly, even though he looks mean. No, he's friendly. I'm always keen. I'm always keen. People come and talk to me, come and talk on the mic. I'll teach them what to do. I'll give them those little tidbits of information, encourage them. And like you say, we do need more. We need those women who've got that stronger, deeper voice, who are keen to stand up and give it a go. We'll teach them what to do, what to announce, when to hold back, because that's also important, as you said. But for now, back out to the events, cheering on the athletes.
Let's go.
Punting and promoting the sponsors and brands and the event organizers, because you guys are rock stars. Thank you very much for hosting all these events, and enjoy the travel.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Siavita. Really good being here. Have a good weekend, you guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye. Switching off now.